Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 13 of Season 7, The Name of the Doctor. Clara stalks the Doctor throughout his previous regenerations under the guise of saving him. This episode is written by Stephen Moffat, directed by Saul Metzstein. It originally aired on the 18th of May, 2013, was originally watched by 5.46 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Brian.
Hey there, this is Frank.
Hi, it's Kelsey.
This is Josh.
On Gallifrey, the original Doctor steals the Tardis with Clara's help. She has earned the title of the Impossible Girl by falling through time to aid her, when needed. In Victorian England, a murderer named DeMarco bargains for his life with Madame Vastra. He has knowledge about the Doctor that his greatest secret has been discovered. Later, Vastra sets up a telepathic Zoom call with Jenny, Strax, Clara, and River Song, who lives in the library's hard drive. She relays the information she obtained from DeMarco, space-time coordinates of the Doctor's greatest secret, with one word: Trenzalore. Once hearing DeMarco's final message, the Doctor has a secret he will take to the grave, and it is discovered. River realizes its real meaning. At that moment, Jenny feels something beside her. Whispermen have entered the house and have killed her. In the call, her link fades as she dies. River forces Vastra and Strax to wake up before they too are killed. She and Clara receive one more message from Dr. Simeon before Clara wakes up back in her bedroom. His friends are lost forevermore unless he goes to Trenzalore. Well, I will start off with mention that DeMarco gets these coordinates in a mini-sode, a short that is attached to, well, it's on the DVD. It's Clarence and the Whispermen, where the Whispermen are giving him those Gallifreyan writings and coordinates.
Oh, that's cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I thought I'd mention it here because that's all it really does. There's nowhere else. I'm like, why do I want to mention this at the end when it's taken care of up front?
It does change the story a bit, where it's more the Whisperman setting this whole thing up, where you don't get that really at this beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got that last night for the first time, that it's, because it always was like, how, is this guy telepathic or what? It's like, oh no, he's just a victim of the Whisperman. And that.
And why did they choose him? Because he's a now public figure and it'll be noticed?
Because Vastra, they needed Vastra, and so that would get her intrigued because it was during her time.
Yeah, that's how I took it, is that Vastra is looking for certain cases to be solved, and he was primed for that.
So he'd be like in the front page of the newspaper or this, that, and the other.
Yeah, like Jack the Ripper, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
She would be looking for that guy.
You should have just made it Jack the Ripper.
No.
Yeah, stupid show. Let's hang up.
It's just as an aside, it's weird. When I was in high school, I was fascinated by Jack the Ripper and the whole mystery around it, time after time. And then I found out the real story, and it loses its like these were real people and they were tortured, And so it's like, I'm kind of glad that they do it. This is a Jack the Ripper type-ish person.
Oh, I know nothing about Jack the Ripper.
They didn't catch him.
I thought that the cold open was perfect to where it ended with Clara seeing all the different incarnations of the Doctor. I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I love all that. I love, too, the cheesy effects they used to put her in.
Oh, perfect.
In there, how each effect matched the cheesy effects of the time of the clip.
And all the costumes.
I was going to say her wardrobe.
And the costume wardrobe,
great.
Yeah.
They did really well. And I did like that it promised the answer to what this Impossible Girl is. It's like, yes, we are going to have that answer in the season finale.
Yeah, and it had been so long since I had watched this episode that I forgot the reason why. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I've been wondering about in my lapse in memory for months now. And I
feel
was
like-
equally intrigued watching it, just
Yeah.
for this as I was before, and I love whenever they bring in any of the old history of the Doctor. I love it.
I feel like they should have switched these titles because Journey to the Center of the TARDIS kind of fits this a little bit more, or that's what I think of when I think of this episode. I don't think it's the name of the Doctor, but it's also not the same.
But it is very fitting of a name towards the end when it comes to fruition.
It's just that there's like two separate things going on. We're getting the explanation of the Impossible Girl, but we're also leading up to the 50th. So that's why I think every time I think of this episode, I don't think of this title as episode.
Right.
Which Doctor was wearing a fur coat in Venice? I have to go back. Doctor 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have so
This is a verbal medium, Eugene. You have to answer out loud.
2. Second Doctor.
Okay.
so that was like, what year was that? Because the show was still in black and white. No, the first Doctor footage was so grayscale. I didn't
did
realize
colorize
it was
it,
in
though.
black and white.
Yes,
Yeah.
but not as much.
I understand.
Well, it looked good. It was
I'm
fun
also
to
an
see.
idiot.
No, you just have a difficulty with some colors, so I could see that.
Yes,
being,
I am colorblind.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just that, well, they graded it up differently at this point because it was muted. So don't worry.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what year was that clip of the second Doctor?
I have that. I will figure
Sometime
it
in
out.
Very-
the 60s.
In the 60s, yeah. It's just when I see that footage, and because that Doctor tends to be dressed like Dracula, I always think it's much earlier. I always think it's like in the 40s or something.
I think that's from the 5 Doctor special because he's wearing that fur coat and running
Oh,
in that particular episode. And I think that was in the 70s or 80s.
The 80s.
83, but they aged it to look older.
So that what's the name of that actor?
Patrick Troughton.
So Patrick Troughton was 20 years older than when he was in
that's
the
why I saw the
original.
back of his head.
Well, you saw his face though.
Yes, if we ever do that classic episode, he's much older, and William Hartnell has died, so they found somebody to be a lookalike.
Mm.
Okay, was it a good lookalike?
You can tell it's different, but he's an old man with white hair that's
Well-
pulled back like that.
We don't all look alike, Eugene.
No, but like they got the look, like the silhouette.
Yeah.
But
What's
if you look
what's
closer,
what's his name? The guy who plays him more recently.
Peter Capaldi?
Filch.
No,
Oh, that guy.
No, from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Filch.
From Harry
David-
Potter.
Is it David something?
I can't
Walter
remember.
Frey?
Yes, Walter Frey. Walder Frey.
Alder.
It's nothing like David, but
His real name is David something. I can't-
don't think-
oh, Walter Frey is not the actor's name.
Is it David
No, Walter
Bradley?
Frey's-
That
No,
sounds right, but I can't remember. Let me look up.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, David Bradley.
Oh, good job.
Oh,
Eugene.
really? That's his name?
My memory's awesome. I only had to look
Sworn.
up David Bradley. Everything else is from memory.
But I wondered, did you see that for real, Eugene?
Yeah,
It was from
that's
5 Doctors?
yeah, because I have seen the 5 Doctor, and he does run weirdly like that. And I
Okay.
think they like keyed him out, and they put him over, like Alburn said, Venice Beach.
Yeah.
Because why is he wearing a
Ah.
warm furry coat
The
on
only-
the beach?
The only
Oh,
thing
we
I,
wanted to see that episode. Ooh, they're in Venice. Let's watch that episode. That looks fun.
Oh.
I
yeah,
remember
no.
running through caves with that. Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's very cold where they are.
So you think they took like stock footage from the 80s Venice and put it over it, or from whenever, for this particular
or-
episode?
Yeah, they did a lot of clever editing tricks. That's why I was gonna say maybe I should save this till the end because
Sure.
there's like more stuff to then reveal of how things were cobbled together.
Oh, that's cool.
I do have to say I'm a little disappointed that they didn't have him in his real costume. They should have picked a clip of him in his costume.
They wanted running.
I did find it odd to see him running, that particular Doctor, and not scowling.
I was gonna say he should have been on the Venice boardwalk playing with the other street performers because he has a flute.
Flute. Oh, that'd have been funny.
I was wondering when Jenny first heard the whispering men outside the door when she was going to put the coat and umbrella away and got distracted by Vastra asking about Shax. It's like she totally forgot that she heard them.
Hmm.
You know, she acted like, okay, totally, you know, she was, and that's not Jenny. Jenny would investigate. There is something weird going on. But it seemed to me like the silence. You know, you turn your head and she just totally forgot about it and went on. So it just seemed why that was in that shot. I mean, later on, we understand, you know, then you hear her going, oh, there's somebody in the house. And I thought she did great on that scene.
Oh, it was heartbreaking.
It
Yeah.
was.
And
Especially when
Vastra
she
just
lost-
wouldn't listen.
Yeah, I think it's pointing out that Jenny is aware, but Vastra is kind of tunnel visioned on what to do and dismissing anything Jenny is saying.
I thought it worked well with the characters. And I love River taking command of everything.
Yeah.
Like, get up, wake up, throwing things at them. You're under attack.
Oh, well, going back to that conference call, the Spring from the Four Seasons by Beethoven is playing as Jenny and Vastra kind of like, okay, let's settle in and wait for the others to get on this Zoom call.
With the
I
new
kinda-
desktop.
Yeah, it's not the Taj Mahal. I kind of like all that little, just that character moment between both of them.
Hmm. What's the significance of Glasgow for Strax? Is that just making fun of Scottish people, or is there something
Moffat.
more?
It would be
Okay.
Moffat.
And it's not making fun of Scottish people. They are proud of the fact that their forms of recreation are beating each other up.
Okay.
They're known for it. So it's like, yeah, go down, get some drinks, and beat the crap out of each other. Of course, Strax would love it.
Yeah. The subtitles for the first thing that the Scottish man says is indistinguishable, like mutterings. So
Yep.
Yeah,
Subtitles were
slightly
gibberish.
insulting.
I was like, oh.
Slightly insulting.
But Moffat, being from Scotland, wrote that, so it's like he has the right to be insulting.
sure.
But
He didn't write the subtitles though, because the subtitles are always wrong.
If you watch the movie The Commitments, that's all it says on the bottom.
I did like Clara bringing up the souffle girl. And the souffle is the recipe. It's not the souffle itself, which is a good thought. I never really thought of it that way, but it is really nice. And then I thought it was brilliant the way Vastra invited her.
Mhm.
I totally just,
Yeah.
you're not going to go to do any of this stuff. So I've already, met you without you knowing it.
I liked also the psychedelic room that they were in.
Mm. When Clara's reading the letter, it reminded me of Stardust when light this candle and you will be transported to wherever we are. And I was like, oh, it's not going to go that way. It's already in the paper from her
Right.
touching it.
I also liked how little character moment was everybody's drinking tea. River shows up. Would you like some tea? Sure. And it's a glass of champagne. And
How did you
it's
do
so
that?
River. Disgracefully. It's so River. Oh God, it's good to see River again.
It's funny too because in other shots throughout later in the scene, there's a bottle of champagne chilling in a bucket, like in the foreground.
Mhm. I want to know how she got there because everybody else is sleeping where she's not. So it's just my logic brain wants to like put those pieces together.
Mm.
But I
Well, I mean-
understand it's not part. That's not
Right.
necessary.
But she also isn't really alive. So
That's the other part of the logic brain of my is it the right side?
this one you just have to give it,
Yeah.
let it go. But I understand.
I let that one go, no problem. The one that kind of sort of gets me, that I kind of have to roll my eyes and just accept, is how did Vastra get the letter to Clara? Was it Back to the Future 2? Was
Yeah.
it?
She put it in the mail to be delivered on this day.
Yeah, and British Postal Service being what it is. But I like the fact that they just run right through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't need to know. Doesn't matter.
And speaking of the letter, you see briefly the address of the Maitlands where Artie and Angie live, and it's in Chiswick. So Donna Noble and her family are somewhere in the same city.
Oh, that's cool. Donna can go over there and beat some sense into them.
Don't you always have to say Chiswick with a question mark at the end? Chiswick.
Chiswick. That's just typist in Chiswick.
It did have a
and
nice little moment in that seance scene that when I think of it as a seance rather than a conference call, just between River and Clara. Oh, I didn't know you're a woman. And she's like, okay, where is the doctor in this? I don't think she's really jealous, but it comes off a little bit like that, but more of what is the doctor doing and who are you and how good are you? She's like sizing
Mhm.
everything up as well. And just Strax, are you a different shade of green? She's embarrassed about it. I thought that was a nice little bit.
well, Frank, there's even a visual cue because this is the first time River and Clara have met. So when it racks focus on that 2-shot to focus in on Clara, to me that's River going, "Who is this person?" And I like that.
And it seems that camera's even closer on River and a little bit further apart from Clara, so that makes her look smaller
Mhm.
you know, in just the grandeur of their size. This is River, and this is just Little Claire kind of feeling of sizing her up.
And that's, I don't necessarily see it as jealousy. Not that it's a big thing of jealousy anyway, but it is just more of, well, you're not in the club. And then it's like, oh, wow, you're in the club more than I'm in the club. Wait a minute. But I also do love the fact that she had heard the name River Song. So the doctor actually did talk about River Song.
Right.
Mhm.
Didn't go into detail because she didn't know if it was a man or a woman. But like, remember when Sarah Jane came back and Rose didn't know who Sarah Jane was at all? Oh, he's never mentioned you. So I do like the fact that the doctor in some way has mentioned River Clara.
That little bit of hurt on her face when she realizes, like, whatever he did tell you about her, it wasn't anything emotional. Otherwise, you would have known I was a woman.
Right. But also,
Yeah,
she knows the doctor's name, so she wins.
And it's also, I don't, it is Clara. So I do think she was doing this in this way. It was a little bit of a ding to River as well, where it's like, wait, you're not in the club. You're not in the club. Oh, wait a minute. Well, he's mentioned you, but he doesn't care that much about you. Just a little bit of a ding. And then I love how River comes back with her own ding, where it's like, oh, I know his name, and it's just kind of like, oh, guess what? Game, set, match. I win.
Right.
Just a little bit. I mean, it doesn't even reach the animosity of Sarah Jane versus Rose, but it is just a little like, we're setting our boundaries here.
Right.
And River's like, I win.
Did we get to the doctor's reaction yet, or is that?
Not yet. I think
No,
it's
no.
the next. But the one other thing I have in this portion is that when Alex Kingston as River slaps Vastra awake, she actually slapped Neve McIntosh with all that makeup on.
Did she ruin the makeup?
I don't think so, because they kept going.
One last thing real quick is I love the poems in this episode.
Yeah,
I
they
just
don't
think the
seem
poems are great.
forced at all.
No, they don't. They really
And
do
I like
seem
it.
well done.
This doesn't necessarily apply, but it reminded me of, like, when you see people in movies and television reading maps in another language, and they're translating the poem or the rhyme in another language, but it rhymes in English.
Right.
It always bugs me. Not that this was that case, but I was glad it all just felt coherent and it didn't break any sense of logic.
The TARDIS is just that good.
Yes, I would have handed it to the TARDIS if it was the other case.
Clara goes downstairs to find a blindfolded doctor playing blind man's bluff with the kids. Of course, they left for the movies a long time ago. Clara tells him what has happened and he is visibly shaken. The message doesn't refer to a secret being revealed, but his grave. And his grave is on Trenzalore. To save his friends, the doctor heads to Trenzalore, but the TARDIS fights every second of the trip. The doctor finally gets her to land in the middle of an old battlefield graveyard. They see a giant TARDIS, which the doctor says is the same TARDIS, his TARDIS. What else would the doctor be buried in? River appears and tells Clara that only she can see her. They are still connected through the Zoom call. The doctor calls out River, but he is referring to a headstone marked River Song, which is impossible. Whispering men approach them, and River leads Clara to realize that it's a false headstone, hiding a tunnel to the inside of the giant TARDIS. I love this episode. I love this episode. I love this episode.
I just have to say that I really like episodes that begin in this way, where like the companions know the mystery or the plot or whatever, like the inciting incident when episodes begin this way. I think it's a lot of fun.
It's also masterwork from Matt Smith because he opens this sequence as a duped adult, a little Daleks, and he's just kind of like, he's just like, oh, they got me, to being stunned and shocked beyond belief, to being really, really upset, and then to be angry. I mean, he goes through all these emotions. So I have in 2 minutes, the doctor goes from childish, scared, upset, and old. I wrote down old because there's times when he's just talking about things with such gravity, and then angry. And he does it so seamlessly. I mean, you don't even notice it the first time. I didn't even notice it the first time I watched this. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what he just went through is amazing.
Because when Stephen Moffat said we're casting somebody younger and it's Matt Smith, and he goes, he was just able to do that. And I think that that is what Moffat wanted to write into this episode, to see what Matt Smith did in like the audition to get him the part.
Yeah.
And I think he fit it in beautifully.
just made me think. It's interesting that the companion starts off the episode with the knowledge, and the doctor's ignorant, but then the doctor's reaction to what they said poses a question, and then the doctor's in the know, and the companion is ignorant, and the companion has to then question what's going. So it's this back and forth, and I think it's great writing because it puts the audience in this position of questioning and answer. It's just this constant question and answer, and I think that's what makes it compelling.
It also gives Clara, she is in like a not that it's a competition, but in that moment she has information that the doctor doesn't. And I love the fact that the information that she has is so critical. I don't think she expects him to react the way he does because she's never seen it before. But this guy's on the verge. He's on the verge of tears. Yeah. And you would totally freak out going, what did I say? What did I say?
And when the doctor breaks down, it's serious.
Yeah.
It just hit really hard. Going, okay, what does this mean?
I found him breaking down that much frightening because I would say in the whole series, I've never seen him show that much intimate grief and tears. He's gone to places that are like that, but like just in those like 30 seconds, I think that's the most I've ever seen him do that. So I couldn't remember what this episode where it was going. So I was like, holy cow, what is Trenzalore?
Yeah.
It's that I think it's also because it's personal. This is now him. It's like we've seen him with I have to save the entire universe. Yeah, he gets upset. But this one is, oh my God, my secret's coming out. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't want that to happen.
Well, I was just going to ask you, is the secret the war doctor or is the secret...
The war doctor. Okay. We find out at the very end the secret is the war doctor. But what I really do like about this is that the doctor in this moment reveals the mystery of the sentence, the misconstrued sentence. I like that they don't carry that on later into the episode because it's like it was clever, really clever. I love it. But it also was like, now let's, that's a fun little bit. Let's now move on to the heart of the episode. So the doctor just like, no, you got it wrong. They're talking about where my grave is. And the first time you watch that, you're really like, wait, what? Oh, click, 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 click. And then it's like, and now I have to catch back up with the story.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I like those ones where you don't know what they mean. It has a double meaning.
Yeah, it's great.
I missed the double meaning completely for the first time. I bought right into they're going for the secret.
And I don't remember it. I don't remember because my copy was different. But that's why when I wrote it, I said, the doctor has a secret that he'll take to the grave and it has been revealed. And then after I said, now where should that comma go? Because that's what changes the meaning is the punctuation. So I thought that was, I just thought that was Moffat. That was brilliant.
This is one where Hamilton. I think, previous two-parters, we'd say, if they'd only make this one part, there would be less fluff and extra stuff. And this one, the secrets unfolded very quickly throughout the episode, which was better than dragging it out.
Yeah.
The scope of this story made me think at one point, like, is this a two-parter? Are we doing a two-parter today? So I went back to the menu. I'm like, no, this is only one episode. Okay.
No, the grave is found, which is not the secret, but then they still have the secret. So it does have both. And the secret's at the end, which is really good. It's still completed.
Well, the secret's about the law of attraction, but I hear what you're saying.
But it is, you do realize that the he's upset that his grave has been discovered because he knows that will expose his secret.
Right.
It's really roundabout and Moffat at his best.
Because you don't really realize what you just said until hindsight, where the secret is that's his body's in there, or this, that, the other. But his corpse being there means that they will discover the secret because the war doctor is on the timeline, and his corpse is the time. It's very heady, but it's interesting. And again, I'm a broken record with this. That's why these episodes are so great to rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
because it's just layers and layers of story. It's a surface layer story that works if it works. there's a backstory. Like there's so many things that work.
I even caught new things watching it last night. And
when I was watching it, I had a little Mandela effect at the end when they were asking him what it was, and I said it out loud to myself because I totally expected him to say what I remembered him saying, that it's my corpse, but he never says that. He's like, wow. Luke, I am your father. I was like one of those things. I'm like, so that whole scene, I kept waiting for somebody to say that that's his corpse, and nobody ever did. And I was like, oh, okay.
You mean the specific
and he doesn't
wording?
have a corpse.
What's that?
You mean the specific wording?
Yeah.
somebody to say it's a corpse. Okay.
What is it? And then him to turn and say, "It's my corpse."
Yeah.
Like I was just waiting for that
At the
when
end
they're
of
at
the
the end.
episode?
Well, towards the end, when
they're
they-
looking at the energy
the
thing.
timeline, and they keep asking him, "What is it? What is it?" And the way he keeps describing it is sort of beating around the bush and using flowery words to give metaphors to what it is. I kept expecting him or someone to just say it's his corpse.
But
maybe
did you notice that he does talk about a body versus what's there?
But
I
but
love
I had that got
you
stuck
had
in
that
my brain.
the Mandela thing. Yeah, I hate that.
So I was slightly distracted. Then the scene was over, and I was like, I guess
the doctor
that's
was
in my
talking.
head.
The doctor was talking just to you, Josh, when he was saying, "What do you expect? A
Right.
body?" He knew.
I hate
He knew.
Mandela effects. Another little thing that I liked was, and one of these we haven't gotten to yet, but the TARDIS doesn't want to land on Trenzalore. He gets the TARDIS to land on Trenzalore. He opens up the door and the window's broken, which also is a hint of how serious this is, because when you damage the TARDIS, it takes a lot. So it breaks the glass. They discover his gigantic TARDIS tomb. Glass is broken.
Right.
And then a little while later, when Vastra looks up, glass is broken.
Right.
I like that, just on a things are seriously effed up and they're not going to get fixed. That's kind of how I took that. The TARDIS in the timeline never gets fixed after. I thought that was an interesting thing.
Clara and the doctor. I mean, when the whole scene of him breaking down and her there and just together, and then he's like, "Okay, I gotta go do this," and there's no way of talking you out of it. Not a chance. We're going. And it's just, they are such a great team together. I like them so much.
And even here, the doctor lies when he plugs in Clara into the TARDIS, saying this won't hurt.
Right.
He said, I lied, it will. And he's done that before with Rory and his father and dinosaurs on a spaceship, and then with Emma in the episode Hyde.
And it's a perfect character moment, and it's also perfect for Clara to just be like, and move on.
Right.
She just is. So it's. Oh, I'm sorry. I like this episode so much more now that we have the complete story.
Right.
I liked it back then. I thought it was really fun, especially coming off the episodes that we had just come off. But now when I watch it, it's just like, oh, this is so much fun.
I like the idea that over time the TARDIS loses its capability to keep everything inside, and just kind of it grows to like how big it actually would be if the inside wasn't bigger than the outside. But when we first see that huge TARDIS, and I think what Clara's thinking of, like, that's just a giant headstone, and I'm like, that is incredibly cheesy. Like, really? And then he explains what it is, and I'm like, oh no, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, okay, thank you for saving that, because at first I was like, no, like, that's so weird.
Well, he even mentions that greater warriors of what you've done, you have bigger, like, medals. Like,
so they set us up.
But I'm like, okay.
But I love the little cap at the ending where he's like, what else would they bury me in?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, yeah, that's perfect. Bury him in it. It's perfect.
Yeah, so they put his non-body in the TARDIS, and then over time the TARDIS grew and grew and grew and grew.
Yeah, just leaked. And it is one of those things that I'm like, don't think about it too much, Brian. But the sci-fi scientific person in me goes, okay, the doctor says this is a known effect of the TARDIS. Any TARDIS can have this happen to it. And TARDISes are supposed to be like infinite in size. If they're not infinite in size, they at least have a collapsing star inside. So obviously the Time Lords have a way of stopping this. Otherwise, the universe would fill up with really old ancient TARDISes really quick. So it's like, well, you can't leave it there just growing. It's, it'll destroy the planet, the system, the galaxy. What are you going to do about it? Oh, it doesn't matter. Keep going. It's fun.
And briefly here, the doctor does mention that Vastra, Jenny, and Strax cared for him during the dark times.
Yeah.
Which is the period when he was isolating himself in Victorian London after the death of Amy and Rory. So I like that he brings that up from that one line in, I think it's The Snowman. And it's just nice that's why these characters mean so much to him. And it kind of sparks my imagination rather than like a throwaway line.
Right.
So I think I like it in this case, where before I have pointed out where a throwaway line did not sit well with me.
And that they didn't judge him. They just
were
there. They were just there. I love it. Good dialogue.
Yep.
Well, as they're leaving this spot, there's more great writing with the doctor revealing River's relationship to Clara. Like as they're about to go down the tunnel towards the TARDIS, the doctor said, "Yeah,
it's kind of like a throwaway line."
Yeah. The doctor says, "Oh, they'd never bury my wife out here," and Clara says, "You're what?" As they both drop.
Yep.
Who put the River song "Mislead Secret Door" there?
The script writer.
Okay.
It's like, why? But go
Well,
with it.
the doctor went and did that later, Bill and Ted style, to make sure that it was there.
Okay, I'll buy that for $1.
No, I just think that part I could never really rationalize it.
Vastra and Strax wake up inside the huge TARDIS and find Jenny's body. Vastra begs Strax to help her, and soon Jenny's all better.
Clear. Boom.
Dr. Simeon, or actually the Great Intelligence, dramatically welcomes them to the tomb of the Doctor and talks about the Doctor's death. Deeper in the TARDIS, Clara gets lightheaded from the dimensional forces and begins to remember her future and the Doctor's past. They eventually meet up with everyone where the Great Intelligence says the key to the tomb's door is one word, and that word is the Doctor's name. The Doctor won't say his name even as his friends are dying, but suddenly the door opens. River has said his name. The TARDIS can still hear her. They enter a wrecked console room with a glowing pillar of energy spinning in the center. This is what is left of the Doctor. Scar tissue of his journey through the universe. The Great Intelligence enters the light in order to spread himself throughout time and space and take revenge on every second of the Doctor's life. A weakened Doctor cries out in pain as his life is rewritten. Vastra, Jenny, and Strax go outside to see the consequences. Star systems are disappearing because the Doctor wasn't there to save them. Jenny disappears, and Strax reverts to his old self and threatens to kill Vastra until she has to kill him.
Wow, a lot happened.
Oh yeah.
Boy, we are effed.
I remember asking a few months back about the stars disappearing, and and you guys told me to just wait.
Yeah.
Like this is a long con. For a subplot. I love it, but it was just like that little thing that was never part of an episode more than what seemed like just like an atmospheric afterthought.
But also the stars disappeared before.
Yeah.
Oh, am I conflating
At the end of
two
the fourth
different things?
episode.
Fourth season?
Fourth season.
Sorry, fourth season.
Yeah.
And also with Amy.
Oh, okay.
They had the stars going out because the universe was getting... So, yeah.
And
it's like, again?
Okay.
Josh, are you thinking of Amy's?
I'm almost thinking it wasn't in like Donna episodes where Donna's
Yeah.
mom someone was even mentioning, oh, the stars are disappearing.
Yes, that's the end of the fourth season, and then it does also happen with Amy when the Big Bang. It's when the second Big Bang. At the end of the first episode, nobody knows what stars are on Earth because there's only the sun left. And
Okay.
little
yeah.
Amy's
remember that.
drawing stars, and oh come on, she's crazy. She's seeing stars.
Right. Okay. Well, I was conflating
both.
my memory then. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. Okay.
Because
It's a running theme.
I always think of Donna.
Well, then
Yeah,
I
'cause-
like the motif then of
Yes.
the stars going out.
Yeah, because I think of Donna's as well, because that's more of visually what's going on with the Paternoster gang as they look up, where stars are kind of disappearing from the sky, where with Amy's example, the TARDIS is the sun that's warming the Earth. So there's only one quote unquote star.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just splitting hairs on that part.
I do also like the way that Vastra delivers the lines in that scene, because you can get the feeling that she's being altered.
Yeah.
She's a little bit more hostile, a little bit more typical Silurian that we've seen, because she's saying things a little rougher. And especially when she turns around and is confronting Strax. And then she shoots Strax. I don't know if normal Vastra would have done that.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
she wouldn't have done it so early. She would have fought him.
She was aware that it's different behavior of hers, but she did it. She only hesitated for a moment, and then when it actually started to happen, she had no trouble doing it. It was instinct.
And then she just kind of fights it off, and
Yeah.
I would have liked to
Vastra
see-
did have a change. She wasn't ignorant.
Unaffected.
Unaffected.
Right.
Well, even with Strax, it happens early. I picked this up this time watching it, where he pushes
Yeah,
her, and he's more like militant about saving Jenny.
Right.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
would have liked to have
Oh, you
seen-
mean that early?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's how I took it. I don't know if that's canon, but again,
I can see
rewatching
that.
things. Yeah.
I don't. I've never took it like that, but I can see how you might think that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw
because-
that also. He felt like he was already
Turning
able to be
or reverting.
fighting. Right.
Yeah.
He'd had a rough day. A Scotsman
Yeah.
had beaten him up.
That part was more Strax's normal like aloofness to primitives.
Hmm.
And he called her boy again, I think, there too.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, the acting from Vastra as she returns into the console room and reports that Jenny and Strax are gone. It's just like you can really see the acting and the emotion through all that prosthetic. It's
Mhm.
amazing.
Right. It's great. It's one of the best makeup
I don't-
prosthetic jobs they've done on the show.
I don't remember the specific shot, but there is one moment where Vastra's reacting in the TARDIS console room. It's a close up on her, and she's reacting to something that probably the doctor says, and she says nothing. You can just read everything in her eyes.
Hmm.
And it's like even the makeup kind of moved a little bit, and it's like
Mhm.
she's brilliant.
Yeah.
She works that makeup so well.
It's brilliant makeup. You know, those prosthetics, the way they do a lot of that is it's not one prosthetic, it's a bunch of prosthetics on the actor's facial muscles. So it's designed to react to their face, but you still have to overact.
Yeah, she's over.
You know.
You have to overreact to make the makeup move, but
Right.
but you have to do it in such a way that it looks subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am moving the and she does it so well.
Yeah.
Other points of makeup that I liked or special effects is when Dr. Simeon, as the Great Intelligence, does his reveal that he's like the Invisible Man. That was really nice.
Yeah.
It's funny, like I like it, and you know, I like how they put all these weird things in this science fiction show, and that's so cool. But then when there was no point to it, I thought, like, why did he do that? Oh, like,
It's to reveal that he's the Great Intelligence and not Dr. Simeon. He's just taking on the form of Dr. Simeon. I took it as it's a menacing threat that you can't kill this thing, that it can embody other things.
and Richard E. Grant could sell anything. He's fantastic, but like when he did it, and then he, you know, the other one stepped forward and became him. I was like, so he just did that to show off?
Yeah.
And then I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay. It's like, oh, it's kind of like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Toad the German takes off his coat and he pulls out these nunchucks and twists it into a hanger to hang his coat on.
Yeah, they're all.
It's funny, Josh, as you were saying that, I thought like they could have done all of Richard E. Grant's shots in one day. And he's like, what do you need me to do? Okay, bing, bang, boom. Okay, see you guys.
Yeah.
He's got such, and then I've seen him interviewed, and he's like this sweet little British fellow,
Yeah.
you know, and he's just so menacing.
I want to go back a little bit when they're back in the catacombs. First off, catacombs is the stupidest way to pronounce it. You don't brush your hair with a comb. River's explaining to Clara what happened. You know, I did die. Oops. Sorry, I didn't mention it before. He left me in the largest hard drive in a library. And then she says, he left me like a book on a shelf.
Yeah.
Ah, perfect line. And then that brings up the doctor doesn't like goodbyes. Oh, so good.
Going back to the Great Intelligence, as Dr. Simeon, he mentions that the doctor has been blood soaked several times, and he's definitely, or specifically referring to the leader of the Sycorax, which the 10th Doctor kills in the Christmas invasion, Solomon, from when the 11th Doctor sends him to his death and dinosaurs on his spaceship. Those are the ones that came to my mind. And then he mentions also that the doctor that is known as the Storm, the Beast, and the Valeyard. And the Valeyard will come up later. Sorry.
It's not some.
It has come up before. It will come up again. It came up previously in The Trial of the Time Lord, which is one full season of the 6 Doctors season.
I thought the choices that the Great Intelligence picked were a little weak. You know, I mean, he doesn't he also say Androzani?
Yeah. What was that?
And that's the 5th
That's the
Doctor's
fifth
final
Doctor.
episode. It you know, the Great Intelligence mentions the Daleks, but it's almost kind of like in the Daleks. It's like,
Well, he mentions the Cybermen as well, I think.
yeah, but it's like, well, I just wish there's one little tweak where it was like he was listing off all these things, and then at the end he just makes an emphasis of and the Time Lords,
Mhm.
you know, and that would have hit the Doctor because the Doctor's always, you know, his friends are saying he's not soaked in blood, but he is.
And we finally get an answer to a question we did not know we had. Why they actually filmed Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. It was only for her flashback so she could remember all this stuff, the scene of her and the doctor on the ledge, and she could be affected. So it paid off really well, I think, in this. It was like, I'm so glad we know that, and why they had that scene and why they had the old episode, and that she doesn't really remember it well. She knew something happened. And then here it all starts coming back. So it had a great impact in this moment.
And they're just messing with Clara all around. She's going through a mental the whole episode. I don't know that, I'm first off, I'm traveling through time asleep, and then I don't know the doctor the way I thought I know the doctor, and then now I'm talking to the doctor's wife, and then all of a sudden it's, wait, now I have all these memories I don't have. What is going on?
I love this whole Clara story in this episode and how it explains things in the past, and we'll get to it in a few minutes, but how it's resolved in this, I found it to be really great.
Yeah, I do like this.
And I also remember the first time watching this episode when the door opened. There's a moment, it's like, say your name, we're killing your friends. And the doctor actually says, please, begging him to stop. But that's when the door opens.
Right.
And I remember just being like, wait, I thought he said please. His name's not and then River just comes slowly across the front of the camera, and she's like, I know his name. I said his name. I think I screamed at that point. I'm like, that is the best thing ever.
Either that or please is the magic word.
yeah. I did think word. That for a split second. Was like, you're really not going to leave it on that. And then it just turned into the most beautiful moment.
And
I did like that they didn't show River at all during that scene. You didn't really see her.
Yeah.
So
beforehand, there was no foreshadowing.
Right.
When the Great Intelligence starts saying he's going to go into the timeline, and they were explaining what will happen to him and how that will affect things, and then you start to realize, oh, that's what happened to Clara. Like that's what I was like, oh, that's really cool. It just started to kind of expand, more and more how and I think that's good writing. When good writing makes you think and actually figure out what the writing is saying, that's so much fun.
Yeah, I agree.
And going back to Brian, before you go on, Eugene, going back to Brian about the whole scene with his name and trying to open the door, the Great Intelligence is Doctor Who kind of thing, which brings me back to A Good Man Goes to War, when Dorian, thank you, kept saying Doctor Who, Doctor Who. So they had this kind of idea running through this, which is really nice. That it wasn't a big thing then, but it was. It wasn't something that we really focused too much on of going, why, what's his name and all this. It worked in the episode, but then here it also adds to that weight of that episode in Doctor Who.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I think it happens in this part where the doctor and Clara are fending off Whispermen in the catacombs. The doctor says "Yowza" again. I think the last time he did that was with the Angels Take Manhattan, I believe.
Right.
Clara is remembering her other selves and knows she must enter the light. River tells her that she will be killed and copies will be spread throughout the universe. But, Clara says, the copies can save the Doctor. She enters the light and her copies appear throughout the Doctor's lives. The timeline is restored. The Doctor tells the others that he will enter his timeline and rescue Clara. Unseen and unheard, River pleads with him not to do this. She moves to slap him and he captures her arm. He says that he always listens to her and he always sees her. He never spoke to her because it would hurt him too much, and he was right. After a heartbreaking, gut-wrenching goodbye, River fades with a last goodbye, sweetie. The Doctor leaps into the light.
I was really touched when Clara was making the decision to do it.
Yeah.
And just sacrifice, like her putting the pieces together of how she's going to do this, and the fact she's already done it, and it's her destiny, this, that, the other, but she still has the choice. I just always get sacrificing oneself for love, but not a romantic love. It always hits me really, really hard.
I
yeah,
love
for
that.
sure. Yeah.
I really love that when there's no
and then he does the
involved.
same thing.
Yes. Yeah, this one was built up nicely.
It really gelled together so nicely, and of course, if they ended it there, perfect.
Yes.
But so good, and I almost feel like, all right, do whatever you want with her now. I don't care. I had my perfect storyline. Like it was so great.
They also They also capped the "Run, run, you clever boy."
Yeah.
Because I think we hear it 3 times, and I think it's the snowman where it seems weird and out of place, and why would she say that at that point? But it was not until I was watching this last night that the first time Clara says "Run, run, you clever boy" is when she's about to step into the column, and she had just said to the doctor, "Get away from here." Get away from here as quick as you can. She's about to walk in, and she turns around and she goes, "In fact, run, run, you clever boy, and remember me." That made sense. And when I realized that that was the first time, technically, she ever said that, the echoes are just echoing her. And so it's okay, so when she's in the snowman, it doesn't organically hit, but she's an echoing what she needs to echo. It just made me go, oh, it all works.
It's the bad wolf of Clara.
Yeah. And it really is because again, it was just oh God, do we have to hear "run, run" again? It's no, this is the one that sets "run, run" in motion. And I only got that last night.
It was originally written to do "run, run."
But to do "run, run." But they couldn't get the rights from Shanana.
Right, whoever was it.
I like having all of the effects of something before the cause. So I liked that idea that we saw her say that before.
Oh, I see.
And we saw her as the other variations. And now we're getting to the cause, which happens after the effects that we've seen because of the time change.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I was thinking happened with the Tardis tombstone earlier, but I was wrong.
Just everybody vote Saxon.
No, this storyline of Clara is really good, and it's peak Clara at this point, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
the impossible girl. This is her whole reason for being, she said at the beginning, and then she does it. And I think the problem that I know I have is that she does outstay her welcome later because this was so good.
Right.
And then she never gets back up to that point. That's when I think I started feeling less fatigued. And so then I remember these less fondly because now I'm looking at it through the shade of oh, Clara. It got to that point, and so now I can't. I did enjoy this first part again, but it's when you have a relationship and then it ends, it colors your whole memories of that relationship, even though you did have really good times together, when you were in it. But then you're looking back, you're ugh. But yeah.
I think it's going to get to me too. I think the moment the doctor grabs River's wrist is the most wonderful moment in Doctor Who. It's just in that split second, you get everything. It's wonderful. It's organic. I say that a lot in this episode. It works so well. It's not forced. It's, of course, should have known the whole time. And what it leads to, where it's it would have hurt too much. And she says, I think I would have handled it. And he's no, it would have hurt me. Oh, I lose it. I think I cried the first time. It was just such a wonderful moment, and kind of counterbalances the scene with Clara, because Josh, like you were saying, it's love without romance. And this is a moment of love and romance. And and he handles both of them perfectly. And of course, it's Alex Kingston, just so perfect. I just love this. That was it.
No, less poetry. Just kidding. Yeah, when the doctor points his screwdriver at the wound in time, the little light spirals, you can hear voices coming out of it. The first one is the first doctor asking, have you ever thought what it's like to be wanderers in the fourth dimension? He's saying this to Ian and Barbara from the pilot episode, An Unearthly Child. The sixth doctor is saying, Dalek, Centauran, Cybermen, they're still in the nursery compared to us. He's saying this to the Time Lords in the trial of the Time Lord. The second doctor saying there are some corners of the universe that have bred the most terrible things from the moon base. The fourth doctor saying, do I have the right, to Sarah Jane Smith from Genesis of the Daleks, which we have done. The ninth doctor saying, absolutely fantastic, to Rose Tyler from The Parting of the Ways. The 10th doctor presenting himself in The Voyage of the Damned. The fifth doctor saying, so you see, that's from the Caves of Androzani. The 11th doctor saying, hello Stonehenge from the Pandorica Opens. And the third doctor saying, it was the daisiest daisy I'd ever seen, to Joe Grant from The Time Monster. So I did not pick up maybe 60% of that.
Yeah, I
Right.
just got some of them
Yeah, but I had to look at the internet to find out what else was being said.
because they're also not written in the
Yeah.
closed captions, and it's like, you people put them in the closed captions. This is important.
And also to do some callbacks, the Doctor acknowledges that the TARDIS has a fast return mechanism when he's telling the Paternoster gang, like, this might not work. And this fast return switch was first seen in The Edge of Destruction, which we did
Right.
with the first Doctor, and then in The Parting of the Ways. So I like that they bring up things again. I always like that it's a bigger world.
And almost Cold War.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
fiddling
almost,
with
yes.
it and said, "Oops, I did it badly. Should not have done that way."
I always get a little confused as to when they're outside trying to get the door open. I'm always a little confused about literally where they are.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
in the beginning, Vastra looks up and you see the police call box, but it's reversed. So it's like she's already inside the TARDIS, but they're trying to open the door. But they kind of explain it for me in that when the door finally does open, it's not the main door of the console room. They come in from like underneath and they walk up the stairs to the console room.
If you look at that first shot where it's all giant, you don't really see the side. It almost like doesn't. I think it's just broken apart.
Could be.
Well, when Vastra is first there and her point of view as she looks up, it looks like she's on, if the TARDIS is 100 stories tall, she's like at the 95th story.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not proportional.
Yeah, where when they first land and it's the establishing shot, I'm like, oh, they're on the ground floor, floor
Like,
one.
yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. But again, it's maybe because the TARDIS is bleeding time and space, so the spatial direction is off.
Yeah, it said the dimension dams are broken.
Yeah.
And size is leaking.
Yes.
I'm starting to think we're supposed to be confused.
So
Yeah.
they're inside and they're outside at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be because the Doctor doesn't want anybody to just find that door, even though they don't have the password or whatever. But that could be part of it too, where it's constantly shifting.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I always saw it as like Bunratty Castle or some castle that's been demolished somewhat because of time. So a couple walls are there, like Josh is saying, and some aren't. And then his actual tomb is inside. So you are inside outside.
This is a great River Doctor episode, and I never realized that. Like, just to more of what Brian's point is, yeah, there's some really great River Doctor scenes, and I didn't remember that. I think, because the reveal of Clara, that's what I remember. This is the episode that reveals how Clara is the impossible girl. But it was fun rewatching it and finding all these like River Song Doctor moments that I had totally forgotten.
The Impossible Girl's story has ended. What a great ending. Oh, wait. What the? Clara lands in a foggy phantom zone. This is the Doctor's time stream, and he is able to talk to her. Men run past her. An old man, one in a hideous coat, a cricket outfit, a long scarf, and a U-boat captain. The Doctor sends Clara an object from her past, the leaf that started her life, and calls for her to come to him. As she reaches him, they happily hug each other. But the Doctor sees a man over Clara's shoulder. He tells her that they need to leave. Clara asks who that is. It's me, the Doctor says. But she knows all his faces. She never saw this Doctor. He is me, but he's not the Doctor, the Doctor responds. He is the one that broke the promise. He is the Doctor's secret. The man says what he did in the name of peace and sanity. Holding a now unconscious Clara, the Doctor replies, but not in the name of the Doctor, and leaves.
What the what?
I kind of like but don't like the idea, so she knows all 11 of his faces, but I don't know that one. That's not the Doctor. That's it's not in the name of the Doctor. Yeah, but he still remembers him. It's still part of his life. It's a little I feel like it's in actuality, it's metaphoric that he's not one of the Doctors.
It's metaphoric. It's metaphoric.
Right, but if it's just a metaphor, then she would remember him and recognize him. And he just said, no, he's not one of the Doctors. He's not the name of the Doctor. And then it says John Hurt as the Doctor.
Never underestimate the power of denial. Now, seriously, it's like that's why she didn't see him. the Doctor denies that regeneration so
Oh,
much.
I see what you're saying. Okay,
It's
good.
his secret. It's his
Yeah.
secret. Like he kept it
Even
a
from
secret
himself.
and-
Even from himself. He doesn't even want to think about it from himself.
I'm just being pedantic. If she's literally traveling across his timelines, it still is his timeline.
Yes.
Where he needs to be saved,
Right.
and he didn't need to be saved.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome.
Frank did it. Yes, thank you. Frank did it again.
But after having her whole life, mind, body torn throughout time, it's not the same person that she was going into the stream. That person's gone. This is a different version of Clara that I separate constantly going, no, this is where it happens.
I'll
So
accept
the
that.
one that falls into the where she lands and she's like, my story is done, right?
Right.
Like she's been copied, she's lived, she's died, she saved the Doctor, and all the different time
And
streams.
this is what's left of her.
Things are okay, because like to me, like I see that as like that's the original one that jumped in and then landed, because as she was falling, she was copied, she lived, she saved the Doctor, she died, and then she landed here in the Doctor's time stream.
That is what you're
At the
supposed to
bottom.
think. You are
But that
supposed
is
to
it.
think that.
Right, I
But
mean, she's in the same outfit.
yeah,
Look,
but
that is
but
true. That is
for
true.
what's upcoming, this is a brilliant theory of Frank.
But that's true. But she's changed because of what she's gone through.
She's lost pieces.
So the version of just jumping in to falling, she's now changed, even though she is the same person.
she's
And I'm seeing parts of her may have been removed or gone too far with other parts, because
she's
that's how
Voldemort.
my theory. It's
She's-
like she's a battered, beaten at the end. She wasn't battered and beaten at the beginning.
She's Voldemort after making the 7 Horcruxes.
Ooh, yes,
So he's
Okay.
not the same as he was
Kelsey
when he
gets
had.
that.
yes, that's a
There we
good
go.
analogy. Thank you.
It,
That's
it's
a
like
good
it's like
analogy.
coming out of a toxic, traumatic relationship.
Kind of like how
Gotcha.
we will be when Clara finally leaves.
But one thing that's interesting to look at that montage, which I think is great. Sometimes she knows, it's obvious she knows who the Doctor is, and sometimes, like in London, she didn't know who he was. Like when she speaks to the first Doctor and there's that mislead, she obviously knows what she's doing. But in the Dalek episode, she didn't, and in the London one, she, so like I guess it's interesting to think like, well, in a whole lifetime of 20 some odd years, each of these Claras will learn or won't learn, but some of it will be subconscious and some of it will be conscious.
It's also neat that sometimes the Doctor hears her and sometimes
Right.
he doesn't.
And I love
Yeah.
how they put her in all those things, like in the
Mhm.
rear view mirror.
Well, I can go through that now, because when we had it in the beginning, I felt like discussing it now when you see all of it is the best place.
Mm.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of clips that are being shown of Clara jumping through the different incarnations and regenerations of the Doctor. And the first one we see is the first Doctor as he steals the Type 40 Tardis on Gallifrey. That's even in the cold open, where those two TARDIS techs, if you will, are like, who would want to steal a faulty TARDIS? And so I like that. Even that audio that is taken from there is from the Aztecs, as Clara is saying, no, take this one. It's a bit knackered, but you'll have more fun.
Because
And then-
that whole thing, there's only one redone shot. When you see them when you see Susan and the Doctor walk into the TARDIS, that's new.
Yeah, that's not them. That's not Susan
Those
Ford, or
That's not reused.
what's her name? Carol Ann Ford and William
Yeah.
Hartnell. That's not them.
And
That's
so,
an interest-
but the Doctor looking at her, that's reused.
That's
That's
taken
reused.
from the Aztecs.
Oh wow, and they colored it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I thought that
Yeah,
was like.
that's definitely him.
I didn't know that was him. I thought that was the person we mentioned earlier, Bernard.
David Bradley.
Oh, David Bradley.
Yeah.
I also think that was the very first time we had ever seen an un-chameleon
Yes.
circuited TARDIS.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
We never knew what a TARDIS looked like when it was off.
I
Yeah.
didn't see a TARDIS. I just saw doors.
That's
There's-
it.
Yeah,
Cylinders.
those cylinders.
Are
Those
the
were the
TARDIS.
TARDISes.
And
Because
When
then
they
you do-
turn
you
into
do see
whatever
them-
they turn into.
You
And then the time vortex.
You
Yeah.
do see the cylinder flying through the time
Oh,
vortex.
okay.
And then when the cylinder lands, wherever it is, the chameleon circuit makes it blend in. So it never goes back
supposed to.
to the... I like it as the bomb.
It's an interesting moment when she tells him to choose that TARDIS, considering the running gag of Clara and the TARDIS not getting along, kind of like not liking Clara.
And actually that line I don't like, because, and I really don't like it now, because Clara becomes so like more important than the Doctor going forward. It's like, I don't want Clara being responsible for the Doctor's picking the right
Right.
artist. I don't like that. Yeah, I ignore it from now on.
What if she had to do that because when the Great Intelligence went back, he made the
Oh, yeah.
doctor pick one
Yeah.
that then exploded?
Mhm.
That's
Or
a good
something
point.
killing the doctor.
Yeah, she didn't have to go back and save him from his original timeline. She had to go back and save him from the ramifications of the Great Intelligence.
Thank you. That works. I'll use that.
Yay! Thank you.
And then the third doctor, as he's driving on Bessie, and we see either the Great Intelligence or Clara in the rear view mirror, is part of the Five Doctor special, or is taken from the Five Doctor special. And then the fourth doctor is walking away from a Gallifreyan something or other. That's from the Invasion of Time. And then Clara finds the fifth doctor trapped in that like sort of matrixy. It's called he's trapped in the Matrix from the Arc of Infinity, where he's like kind of flattened out, two-dimensional. And the sixth doctor, she just runs. She's in the TARDIS, and he runs or walks by her in one of the corridors. And the seventh doctor hanging from his umbrella, that's from the episode, or the story Dragonfire, which I think is Ace's first episode, where she's like a waitress on a future space restaurant.
I think you're right.
Don't ask me anymore for that. It's very bizarre. And then, as we mentioned, the second doctor running is from the Five Doctors special. They just repurposed, or they keyed him out to be running on like a Venice beach type of background. And then this says that there is a mention of the 10th Doctor, but I personally did not see it, so I wanted to know if any of you saw it.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It's a quick shot. The 10th Doctor is a quick shot of they're at the library and they're looking over the balcony. And so, you've got those stairs going down. They look over the little kiosk thing that they use in the scene there. And you just see, I don't know if you see it with Clara, but you definitely see it with the Great Intelligence. He's standing, both of their backs are to the camera. He's standing at the top of the stairs, and you can see Tennant in his coat at the bottom of the stairs, just staring.
Bottom right.
On the bottom right.
Because I was always looking for it with Clara, not with the Great Intelligence. Okay, so
I
that
think
makes
it's with the
sense.
Great Intelligence. I don't think you see it with Clara.
Okay, cool. And then the ninth Doctor, somebody standing in for the ninth Doctor, runs past her. You also see the fourth Doctor, somebody as the fourth Doctor running by her.
Mm-hmm.
She sees all of them. She sees the first Doctor run by. She sees the fourth Doctor. She sees the ninth Doctor.
Yeah.
I don't think she sees the eighth.
She might not see all of them, but she sees a bunch of them.
She
She
sees
sees
a bunch, yes.
of them, yeah.
Yeah. So we mentioned the Aztecs. That's where that dialogue was, or the footage is from the Aztecs, but the dialogue is from the Web Planet when he talks back to Clara. And then we mentioned the Five Doctor special, the Invasion of Time, Arc of Infinity. So I think that's pretty much it as far as what was used to cobble those scenes together.
They don't show them again, do they?
That's why I was saying they don't show the Eighth Doctor, because I think they were saving it for what happens
Wait for the
after
short.
this. Because I looked for anything for the Eighth Doctor, but I didn't find it. Yeah,
Maybe we should watch it again. We have to see that. It's got to be there.
we have to freeze frame.
I do have to say I never noticed the 10th Doctor for the longest time. And then one time I was watching going, oh, that's at the library. That's really cool.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to rewatch it because it's here written, but it's another thing to see it.
Right.
Oh, when Clara is in this fog-like phantom zone, and the way that they chose the shots with the Doctor's disembodied voice calling out to her, like, "Come to me, I'll help you get out of this." It reminded me of the Twilight Zone episode Little Girl Lost, because of just the way that the guy on the opposite side in the living room was calling out to the girl in the other dimension. It was like, "This thing is closing, it's collapsing. Reach out to me, and I'll bring you back to our reality." It evoked those feelings. So if you haven't seen that episode, I highly recommend it.
The man slowly turns around, and words magically appear in the air next to him, introducing John Hurt as the Doctor.
I almost cried at this rewatch this week, just because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know that John Hurt is no longer with us. At the same time, those two things kind of hit me as I saw him turn around. And even when I heard him say what he says, what I did it for peace and sanity. Just hearing his voice again just made me, just sent like a chill up my spine. It was, I don't know. It's
also,
like when
that was a surprise. We didn't know John Hurt was in it.
And so that's why I'm also remembering the first time I watched it. I was like, that voice sounds so familiar. Who is that? And then when he turns, I'm like, oh.
Well, and also when he turns around, you just see so much on his face. He's
Yeah.
just so good. You can just see the weariness. And I also do like that they say it's the doctor, not the war doctor.
Well, that part was confusing.
And I think it's confusing in all the best ways.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Because the
But it's
doctor
supposed
had
to be.
the doctor, or Auburn, do you want to take this one?
No, go ahead.
It was your note that you said to me. Well, it's just confusing because the doctor just made a point to tell us that this isn't the doctor. This is what he did was not in the name of the doctor. And then the person turns and we have John Hurt is the doctor. And also, what a weird way to end a season. Like, what? Like, especially as like a viewer who just went through this emotional, she saves the doctor. And then over and over and over and over again, like he mentioned, let me just save you this once. And you're like, all this emotional. And then this cheesy, like, letters on the screen, like words on the screen. It's just like, what? Like, I applaud them for making a choice, but like it was just weird, and it struck me as weird. And I can't remember how it struck me the very first time I watched it all those years ago, but it was weird to me this time.
I was excited for what came after. I'm like, I cannot wait that long. Please give me what you are offering.
I was blown away that it was John Hurt. He looked perfect. And yes, it was weird for them to put the words up, but you needed that information, and how else could they have done it? And it was also like they were clarifying the fact that this isn't going to be a fake out. This is the doctor.
Well, because Doctor Who is based on serialized storytelling, so they are going to want to end it on a cliffhanger to keep you coming back.
Right, and they always do. At the end of a season, they always put something at the end to cliff. And a cliffhanger, by definition, is basically a cliffhanger. Usually isn't the end of your story; it's the beginning of your next story that they tag on to.
They were trying to blow us out of our comfort zone.
Oh, so like, because I would always, how do you write a good cliffhanger? How do you write a good cliffhanger? And I was like, oh, you just put the beginning of the next episode at the end of this one, and there's your cliffhanger. Mystery solved. How to write a cliffhanger.
Well, I think the best cliffhangers are emotional ones rather than action-oriented ones, because this one, if the doctor had been like dangling over a cliff, you're gonna know. You're like, oh, he's gonna get out of that. But this one is like, who is this person that is part of the doctor, but he's hiding? So I think that's why this one really piqued my interest. I was like,
which is
what
exactly
story?
Yeah. Clara's ending is going to make you want to watch the next episode.
Yeah.
What's going to make you want to watch the next episode is, ooh, what's going to happen in that next episode?
Yeah.
Because I think, but if you watched it in order, and if you watch it the first time, and you know who John Hurt is, and you like him, I mean, I could just see a lot of people not knowing who this person is, and they would not have that same reaction. But it does promise something when it was airing that was really exciting, and something that got the majority of the watchers going, yes, okay, now we're still moving on. We finished this, and immediately you're giving us something to look forward to. But
it does link to the episode in the way of that is his secret that they've been talking about through the episode. But we've had I don't know if I'm using the right term. We've had the denouement. We've had the end of the show, and then this is tagged on. But what Frank's saying,
that part was already part of this show when she was leaving. When the doctor was carrying out Clara, we already had that. This is a secret.
Yeah, I like that the war doctor is his secret. I think my objection is just the lettering on the screen.
But Eugene and Brian, do you still feel that same way when you watch it now?
Yes.
Yeah, Eugene just said he teared up.
I felt even more. It was weird. It's like, knowing what happens, I am more invested, which is, it feels counter.
Don't get me wrong, I still react, what the hell is that? To have the words up there, but I think it was the perfect choice. It was the choice that had to be made. And they also cemented the fact, I don't think they wanted people to go for 7 months going, who's John Hurt? I think they wanted them to know he is the doctor. No ifs, no ands, no buts. He's the doctor. Now you take 7 months going, how is he the doctor? Rather than who is he?
Yeah, that's what I remember. I remember everyone being like, how? There's only 11. There's only been 11 regenerations. Yeah. He can only have 11 regenerations. And everybody was so freaking out going, oh, you can't change the doctor's history that much. You can't just throw in this because he's the 12th. We can't just do that. Yeah, well, we have since learned.
Breaking the fourth wall. I think it just shows how important this show was to the BBC at that time, to really go all out to get everybody back for the 50th special, right? That's what's coming up.
Yes.
Like they put a lot of eggs in that basket.
I think they put so much emphasis on that 50th special. They promoted it the hell out of it, and it worked. That I do think if it had just been John Hurt shows up, it would have been like, well, who is this guy? Well, I'm intrigued to find out who he is, but not really. I mean, I think the most exciting thing would have been like, they got John Hurt for Doctor Who. But by them saying it's the Doctor really sealed, okay, now we have to figure out, now we have to watch. How could John Hurt be the Doctor? But the part that doesn't work for me is that the conclusion or the closure, denouement, whatever you want to call it, for this episode never happens. It's like there's no ending to this and there's no reference to it later. You just start in a completely new place in the next episode. Yeah. And it's like, I guess you get out. Do you come out and then get Vastra and them home? I hope you do.
So do they ever discuss what are the ramifications of the Doctor saying his name?
He just doesn't like people to know it.
That's the mystery. It's whatever you want it to be. It's gone beyond. There's no plan. There's just no plan. There's
right. So like for him not to reveal his name when his friends are dying, what's more important than that? Like
it was protecting his own timeline. It was protecting what was in the graves.
Yeah, it was
rather
protecting
than
the grave.
His name.
It wasn't that
it was
he didn't
the entrance
want them,
into it.
Yeah. If he had said his name, it would have opened the door. That was the bad part.
I see.
He knows the ramifications. He doesn't know what the great intelligence is planning, but he figures it out pretty quick.
Yeah, I forgot in this instance it was to open the door because he never says it ever, but those are just because he doesn't want to. In tonight's episode, it was because he needed the door to stay closed.
Yeah, we will never and should never hear his name.
Right.
There's no way it could live.
Which means we will.
No way.
Right, no, I get you.
I'm going to say what Moffat said at Comic-Con is that the name of the Doctor has always been there. It's been on like the license plate, and it's Doctor Who is the name of the Doctor. I didn't like that answer, but that's what he said.
All right, whatever.
And I think that was just Moffat's way of kind of sidestepping the question.
But what's Doctor Who and Gallifreyan? I think that's the real name.
Right. Other than the Clarence and the Whisperman short that was mentioned earlier, there is a she said, he said mini episode attached to this, and it is Clara and the Doctor each monologuing and kind of reflecting on, I'm just going to say, their time together with this half season. It looks like they are doing their soliloquy in a storage room of the TARDIS. That's the best way I can describe it, because as they're spouting off their things, you see the Cyberman from Nightmare in Silver, her dress from The Snowman, I believe, and a snowman from The Snowman, the painting of her in the monastery, I guess, from Bells of St. John, the space moped from The Rings of Akaton, the Eye of Harmony device from Hyde that attaches to Emma. And they're both just reminiscing of season 7, or their half of season 7 together. It ends oddly because this happened. Was available before the episode, The Name of the Doctor, but both of their monologues end with "I know his or her," depending on who's saying it, secret. The day we went to Trenzalore. So I'm like, that's a little weird, but it's just a teaser, an ad to get you to watch the finale. And then there were also Strax field reports, web shorts. I
remember those.
It's basically Strax doing a vlog to the viewer, but the viewer is the Sontaran High Command. So he's like giving a field report to his commanding officer, if you will. And again, it's just more of just watch the next episode type of thing. But the one that is kind of relevant to what we're doing is the Doctor's Greatest Secret, which ties in more with the Day of the Doctor special. Well, I won't talk about it now. We'll talk about it later. Going through the cast real quick. Alex Kingston comes back as River Song. Richard E. Grant comes back as Dr. Simeon. We get Neve McIntosh as Vastra, Katrin Stewart as Jenny, Dan Starkey as Strax, Eve De Leon Allen as Angie, Cassius Carey Johnson as Artie. Those are the people returning. The ones that are new to this episode are David Avery, who plays Fabian, one of the TARDIS techs in the Cold Open. He was in 24 Season 9 that took place between May 2014 and July 2014. He's most recently been in Hannah, the TV series. Nasi Vautsa plays Andro, the other TARDIS tech. Michael Jen plays Clarence. He was the King's Doctor in the live-action Cinderella movie. He was in The White Queen and Merlin. Rab Affleck, no relation to Ben Affleck, who is also from Scotland, plays Archie, which Strax is fighting in Glasgow. He plays Mickey in Layer Cake, the Plug Uglies leader in the Gangs of New York, and a pirate in Stardust. So there's another reference to Stardust in this episode. Samuel Irvine plays the messenger boy. Sophie Downham plays young Clara. Paul Casey plays one of the Whispermen, and John Hurt is the Doctor. This is the first time we see the default, we've mentioned that, the default version look of the TARDIS. Clara does mention that this is the 11th Doctor to the 11th Doctor. I think that's the first time the number has been said to the corresponding number Doctor.
But you've had 11. I think she says you have 11 faces and I've seen them all.
Yeah. So it wasn't like you're the 11th version. It was, like you said, organically written in.
Yeah, it made sense for her to say it because you would.
And much to Brian's dismay, this is the last episode featuring Angie and Archie.
My dismay is we can't go back and wipe them from existence.
Clara bakes them in her souffle.
Is that in the recipe? Is this from a Grimm fairy tale?
It's the Sweeney Todd episode.
They went to the movies and never came back.
They went to the Forever Matinee. That should be the title of an episode. Just like Last Action Hero. How well that did. So, the name of the Doctor. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
Well, if you couldn't tell, I now love this episode, but it's for a fan. This isn't a standalone episode by any means. You need to know a lot of stuff that's going on. It wraps up stuff, it asks new questions, it brings in new mysteries. So you need to be up on what's going on. I'm not going to say Die Hard because if you're a fan of Doctor Who, you should like this episode, I think.
I agree. Fan. I mean, it's extremely well written, and I think if someone doesn't know anything about it, they can see that it's a good episode, but anything of weight is solely based on stuff you already know.
Yeah, I agree. I would put this in the fan category. Revisit this. The only reason I'm watching this episode again is for this podcast. Like, I don't think that this is one that fans go back to, at least.
See, and I think they do because this is now actually referred to as the trilogy. Fans literally call this the trilogy of Name of the Doctor, Day of the Doctor, Time of the Doctor, because it's so good.
It's not, in my opinion, it's not that great on its own.
Right, but as a diehard, they created a trilogy where there wasn't one.
It was the fans, though, that started to refer to this as the trilogy. I think it should be the quadrilogy, but that's just me. Because Night of the Doctor should be in there too, but it's still good. I mean, I know you have a different opinion, and that's fine. But maybe it is just because we've come off of the crap that came before. I remember watching this episode, going, "Whoa! I enjoyed this a lot. I haven't felt this way in a long time." And it's only gotten heightened because of what came next. But if what came next sucked, which was a distinct possibility, there's still a lot in this episode that I would go back and rewatch. It's River. It's a very good River episode. It's a good villain episode. I like the rhymes and how the Whispermen are. It's got Vastra. There's a lot for me to like in this episode. And if the 50th had sucked, I would just pause when, the Doctor gets Clara back. That would be the end of the episode for me. When she comes back to him and they hug, boom, cut to credits. And I would still enjoy this episode a lot.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed this episode when it aired. So I'm going to stay with fan.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think it's a really competent episode that's moving us to a special. It's not really wrapping up this story here, and there's so much story. So I'll agree with everybody else so far. Fan.
I disagree.
I was trying to read the look on your face that whole time.
I am going for Die Hard. I think this show is best for a diehard because I like it more as I watch it over and over. So I pick up more. Like even you guys had missed the 10th Doctor scene in that. So I think there's more in it. And the more you watch it, the more I like it. So I think a fan is great. I agree with you on that. But this is one you go back to. And so that's why I think it's best, as a diehard who will go back to it over and over, and you get more out of it.
It's funny, I have the same reasons, but for fan. Because you're going to watch it in order, you're going to go back, you're going to pick up new things. And the tiny little quibble I have is that the Doctor's bow tie is slightly askewed throughout the whole thing, but at least it's consistent.
Time.
At least it's consistent. And again, like I mentioned, knowing what happens, I got more invested, and I was like, how is this the reverse of what is supposed to happen? Like, if you know what's going to happen, you should be less, not surprised, but less emotionally connected. I just felt more drawn in for some reason. Maybe it's COVID. I don't know.
I also have a problem with Die Hard because I always think Die Hard this is a terrible episode. It's just, for me, when you get to Die Hard, I can't separate the only people who could sit through this nonsense is a person who has to see every single bit.
Well, ironically enough, the reason it's in Die Hard is because of Brian. So,
why?
Because you said it's not whether it's a good episode or not, it's who can get the most out of it.
Oh, right.
Who would see it most. So it's like, well, it's your reasoning that you get a while ago. That's why I put it in Die Hard.
And again, Frank, the same reason for fan for me.
And it's fan for me too.
All right, so that wraps up The Name of the Doctor. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page. Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, enable the AnyPod podcast skill. Ask AnyPod to play the Who Knew podcast.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival, spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
Delia Derbyshire,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
It made me, again, like, my memory doesn't serve me very well for what happens to Clara next and what you hate about things so much, Brian. But like this.
Auburn.
What's that?
I'm the hater.
Both of you are.
Well, yeah, but still.
Oh, you were pointing that way. Auburn's in the middle.
I know.
Auburn.
I'm just having fun.
Auburn has Mr. Brady's spot for me.